Hey everyone, welcome back. Hope you're having a fantastic day so far. So yesterday we had some new inflation data released. We'll be going over that data as well as what that could mean for Social Security beneficiaries. A lot of bad news coming out of that. Now, in addition to that, we'll also be going over an update in regards to the whole debt ceiling debacle where President Joe Biden and the four congressional leaders will meet once again on Friday. So we're going to be going over all of that and what that could mean as well. Now, before I go ahead and dive into the main content of today's video, if you wouldn't mind helping me out real quickly by just giving this video a like, that just helps out with the good old YouTube algorithm, and also consider subscribing to my channel if you have not already. Okay, so once again, on Friday later on this week, President Joe Biden and the four congressional leaders are going to meet once again. Now, back on Tuesday, they met for the first time. They wanted to reach some sort of deal because, again, on June 1st, that's the date in which the Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen says that we must raise the debt ceiling by. If we don't, we could default on our debts. Now, there are some other estimates. Some people, like Moody's Analytics, for example, say that June 8th is actually the date, but whether or not it's June 1st, June 8th, or even June 15th, we really have to focus on that worst case scenario, June 1st, as the date in which they must raise the debt ceiling. Now, we had the House Speaker Kevin McCarthy saying that we must have some sort of an agreement by next week at latest in order to have the time to create the bill and pass it through both the House and the Senate. So we have the time ticking here. Now, yesterday we actually had the staff members for the four congressional leaders. They all met up and they talked about what all sides are wanting here. So we're not sure whether or not they're coming close or not. And again, today they're going to be meeting once again before the Friday meeting where Biden and the four congressional leaders will once again meet up. Now, after the first meeting, the House Speaker and Kevin McCarthy said that they didn't really make any progress, that they didn't come any closer. However, there are some sources that say they were able to come to some sort of an agreement on some issues, such as clawing back some of the unused COVID funds. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But again, it's going to be very important because if they're unable to raise the debt ceiling by June 1st, they do call into question the timely payments of Social Security. Now, they definitely should be paid out, but they could be maybe a day or two late. Could be a week, could be a couple weeks. Nobody really knows. This has never happened before. This is unfamiliar territory. So, according to Reuters, U.S. Congress, White House began tough debt limit budget negotiations. Detailed talks on raising the U.S. government's $31.4 trillion debt ceiling kicked off on Wednesday, with Republicans continuing to insist on spending cuts the day after Democratic President Joe Biden and top congressional Republican Kevin McCarthy's first meeting in 3 months. Time is tight to avoid a historic, economically destabilizing default on government debt, which the Treasury Department has warned could come as soon as June 1st. But some areas of potential compromise emerged after a White House meeting on Tuesday. Biden signaled an openness to Republicans' demand to claw back some unused money for COVID-19 relief, which is less than $80 billion. Meanwhile, the White House reiterated its backing for legislation speeding government permitting of energy projects by setting maximum timelines. Aides for Biden and McCarthy, Democratic Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, top Senate Republican Mitch McConnell, and top House Democrat Hakeem Jeffries were expected to meet on Wednesday afternoon and again on Thursday before a Friday meeting with Biden has called with the four congressional leaders. Biden said, quote, "Default is not an option. I told congressional leaders I'm prepared to begin a separate discussion about my budget." So we'll have to wait and see how that meeting goes on Friday. That's going to be super important because, again, next week is pretty much the deadline to come to an agreement, to have the time to write the bill, pass it through both the House and the Senate as well. This is going to be super important. They're pretty much playing a game of chicken here. Neither side really seems like they're going to be backing down. But again, I guess it's good news. They are coming to some sort of an agreement, at least on clawing back some of the unused COVID funds. But it seems like Republicans want a whole lot more than that. So whether or not Biden and the Democrats are going to give in to those demands from the Republicans, we will just have to wait and see. But we are playing a game of chicken here, and we definitely don't want to default because, again, we could be losing around 2.5 million jobs. The timely payments of Social Security could be in question, and a whole lot more. We do not want to default on our debts. So I'll definitely keep you updated on all that. Now, also yesterday, we had the inflation data for the month of April released, and we had some good news, but mostly just a whole lot of bad news if you really look into the data. So according to CNN, annual inflation cooled last month to the lowest level since April 2021. So you look at that headline, you think, great, lowest level since April 2021. That's excellent news. Inflation is coming down, which it definitely is. But let's go ahead and dive into the numbers just a little bit more. So they say it's been a 2-year slog of enduring painfully high prices, but the light at the end of the tunnel just got slightly brighter for consumers. Annual inflation continued its slow but steady deceleration in April, according to the latest consumer price index released on Wednesday. The CPI climbed by 4.9% for the 12 months ended in April, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, representing a slightly slower pace of increase than the 5% in March. It was below economists' expectations for the number to remain unchanged. So again, in March, inflation year over year was at 5%. In April, it came down to 4.9%. That's only a decline of 0.1%. That's not something that I necessarily think that we should be all that proud of. That's really not all that great of news, especially with the Fed continuing to raise interest rates. We're really not seeing the change of inflation as fast as we should be. Now, in addition to that, they say it's the 10th consecutive month that the headline CPI rate has slowed, and it's at its lowest rate since April 2021, when this bout of painfully high inflation started to spike. Excluding food and energy costs, which tend to have more volatility, core CPI was unchanged at 5.5% for the 12 months ended in April. Unchanged. The core CPI has not changed at all from March to April. That's extremely alarming. It doesn't seem like inflation is really going down. It's at least very much slowing at this point in time. So who knows what's going to happen? But in addition to that, of course, we have news from the Senior Citizens League, and they say that the cost of living adjustment for next year could be just 3.1%. So the COLA for this year, of course, was 8.7%. It was the highest in 40 years. It's going to be going all the way down to 3.1%. So the COLA you're going to be receiving for 2024 is going to be much lower than expected, at least, which, of course, in a way is actually good news because inflation is slowing down. That's what we want to see. But if you're looking for a higher COLA, of course, that's bad news. But all in all, we're just keeping up with inflation. That's what we're doing here. This is going to be based off the CPIW. Of course, if they were to change that formula over to the CPIE, the COLA that you receive could actually be much higher. Now, we're actually going to be going into some other devastating news for Social Security here, though. This statistic alone. So they say that research on the buying power of Social Security benefits by the Senior Citizens League confirms that inflation is moderating, but a lower inflation rate has not necessarily meant that prices have come down. This year, the study found that the oldest adults, especially those age 85 and older, who retired before 2000, have lost 36% of their buying power. This is a huge number. 36% of their buying power that these people have lost. That would be like if you had $1,000 in your bank account. If you held that there for a long period of time, for this period of time, that $1,000 would then only be worth $640. So you can really see how inflation really just erodes away at the value of your dollar if you don't have it invested in some sort of way where you're at least keeping up with inflation or even outpacing inflation. And you can see these charts here that the Senior Citizens League also lists up on the screen. And you can see that these are the items that have grown the fastest since 2000. So we can see the price of eggs back in January of 2000 were 98 cents. And now in February 2023, they have risen all the way up to $4.21. That's a 332% increase. Granted, eggs have come down just a little bit since February. And we can see everything else, prescription drugs out of pocket, heating oil, dental services, all these things have gone up so much since 2000. I mean, year over year, you really don't see a huge difference in prices because you're going to the store every day. But if you're looking at inflation over, let's say, like a 5, 10, 15, or even 20-year period, you really see how inflation really erodes away at your the value of your dollar. Now, this is just the fastest growing cost for items from just over the last year, from February 2022 through February 2023. And again, we can see eggs on that list, but eggs are coming down. But even apples have gone up from $1.68 back in February of 2022 up to an average of $2.09. That's a 24% increase just in apples. So the cost of living is just continuing to go up. Over the last year alone, over the last couple of years, it's been extremely harsh. But if you look all the way back to 2000, things have really gone up. But that's pretty much all the news that we have for today's video. Let me know in the comment section below which items you have noticed have gone up the most. Obviously, if you look at everything, inflation is just devastating for all Americans right now. The economy is not looking too good. But let's hope that things do improve in the future. But again, that's all the news that I have for today's video. I certainly hope that you enjoyed. If you did, again, I would greatly appreciate if you could give this video a like. Consider subscribing to my channel if you have not already. And I will see you in the next video.